natural segue into
Mike,
this.
I just want to clarify as well, the reason why we
Yeah.
never have Xbox deals is because they end the next day after our show goes up. So there's no point putting them up for people. That's
It's really annoying, I guess.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah,
Cyber
but you
Shadow,
could
Cyber Shadow,
maybe
Cyber
still-
Shadow.
I don't
Let's
know.
get into
Yeah,
it.
let's
Do
just
you want to
talk
open it
about
up,
Cyber Shadow.
Swinny? Because you played
Yeah,
most of it.
Cyber Swinny, you played almost all of it.
Wait, okay. Why am I opening this up? Just because I'm the one
Because you're the Cyber Shadow expert guy who played
All right,
more than we did.
My name is Cyber Swinny in the system we're recording this. So, so Cyber Shadow is a game that has been known about for quite a while, but kind of blew up again as part of the Nintendo Direct in recent months, where it got a lot more eyes on it and a lot more people paying attention to it. So it's from essentially a sole developer by the name of, I've got his name here, Arne Hunziker, I think it is, which he comprises Mechanical Head Studios, and it's published by Yacht Games, who are very well known for the Shovel Knight series or games. So it came out on the 26th of Jan, so Australia Day, and we all gave it a shot. And
We did.
I think we're all on the same page in saying that from the trailer, it would definitely look like a game we'd all really want to, give a shot. It just looked cool. The music was cool. The trailer was neat. Especially Mike and I have recently played The Messenger, which, while they are different games in quite a lot of ways, they've got a lot of that Ninja Gaiden kind of heritage to them.
Yeah.
But this game in particular, I would say, is less. It's definitely Ninja Gaiden, but it's kind of sprinkled in with a lot of Mega Man and Contra in a lot of ways. But the game that I think it's the most similar to, and the developer has mentioned this before, is there's a game called Blue Shadow on the NES, which, well, that's a name in Australia and Europe. It's called Shadow of the Ninja in the US. And if you look up, it's from Natsume. If you look up that on the NES, so Mike, you probably looked at it. So look up Shadow Ninja NES. It looks like this game, basically. It's like futuristic ninja action 2D platforming. I think the difference there is I think that's a two-player game as well. But yeah, Shadow Ninja, if you've ever played that game or Blue Shadow, that you know what to expect with this. But so yeah, I don't know what you guys. How much did you play of this game, by the way?
So about half of what you did, I think. I it's hard to measure how much, if that makes sense. Other than I could say I've got the first 2 power-ups without spoiling anything. That's as far as I got. So it's not that I didn't enjoy the game or anything. I'm actually really digging the game. Although what I think so far is that it can be a little challenging at times. Fair, but challenging. And I quite like that certain parts where I die, you can tell a particular enemy was placed in a particular spot, so you can get screwed over there, which I think is really clever, actually. The one thing that drives me insane is those annoying little fly things that do that sort of circular thing. You know what I mean? Like they do like that arc and they come back to try to hit you. Oh, I hate those.
Yeah.
But it feels like it's kind of like Dark Souls. It's fair because once you understand the way they move, you're like, oh, okay, I see how I can counteract that. The only thing that I found that I slightly didn't like, and I don't know if it's my controller or just the way I play or whatever, is it turning to hit the opposite way that you're currently facing. Something about it sometimes just doesn't do what I want it to do. It's like I try to turn around to quickly, hit one of those things to the other side that I'm currently sitting at, and it doesn't really register properly. I don't know if it's because it doesn't register because I'm hitting 2 buttons at the same time or something. I don't know what's going on.
Are you using the analog stick or the D-pad?
I'm using the analog stick, so I'm starting to think maybe it's something to do with that. Look, it's not a big deal, and overall, it doesn't really, distract from the game, which I actually really am enjoying. So yeah, positive for me so far. I'm keen to actually go through it and finish it.
So I got up to like past world 2, I think it was.
Probably the same part as me.
And I'm kind of a bit meh about the whole game. I'm not saying it's a bad game. Definitely not a bad game. It just for me was kind of like nothing special personally. Like I think it looks great, plays well, but it just didn't really jump out at me. It wasn't really like a game that I was just like, wow, this is amazing. I'm just going to really plow through this. As compared to something like Shovel Knight, and I know it's not developed, it's published by them, but it's not developed by them, but that game was just like special from the start. Like I thought it was great from the start.
That's interesting. I've got the complete opposite. I couldn't get into Shovel Knight, which I think
Interesting.
is really cool that it's such a contrast between us. That's why
And
we
and
never get
I
along.
didn't find it as hard as maybe I just not far enough into it because I saw some people saying, "Oh, it's a bit like the checkpoints are not close enough" or stuff like that. I'm like, I thought it was fine. Didn't really think of that as a problem. Did you find that, Swinny, or?
Yeah, so I guess to clarify as well, probably should have done this at the top, is that this is less a review. This is definitely impressions. So I'm about 5 or 6 chapters in. So decent way into the game, but this game it is structured in a linear way for most of it, but then it starts splitting off. And my assumption is that it will probably get more so like that. It's not going to start spreading out to be a full Metroidvania or anything like that, but you definitely have the ability to go back to areas
Yeah.
with new abilities and things.
Cool.
But it's not structured like a Metroidvania traditionally. So don't think of it from yet. Who knows what happens, right?
It's not. It's not.
Yeah, I don't think it is. That's not what I'm going to get the impression of. But yeah, it's just so far. Look, I'm playing on Xbox Series X, so it's on Game Pass for anyone that's interested as well. This would be a great Switch game, but to me, it's got a really good difficulty balance so far. It definitely starts ramping up, though. I'd say the parts that you guys are up to, I considered it super not easy, but like it was like, okay, this is cool, this is just fine. It definitely starts ramping it up. And what's cool is when they give you new abilities, especially ones that change your movement quite a bit, it's not like, oh, suddenly the game is easy. They start then throwing a lot more at you that is
Okay.
really requiring you to actually master those abilities.
So I'd almost prefer if it was like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying it's easy, but I didn't find it challenging at the start.
Oh,
I
it
guess is
definitely
the way to
starts
say it.
ramping the challenge up, and I think it's only going to just get more and more. If this, and I think it's a good
Okay.
curve, but this isn't a game. This isn't a casual game. I don't think in any way. Now it's not as difficult as your classic Ninja Gaidens and stuff because it
Yeah.
doesn't. It's a lot more forgiving. So we talk about the checkpoints. I think the way they handle the checkpoint feature is just brilliant. I think it's genius. So
Yeah, it works really well. Yeah.
what happens is you come across a checkpoint, and there's not that many checkpoints, so you feel like you earn your progression when you get
Yeah.
So I
through.
think that's why people were complaining about that. They can you can. It takes a while sometimes to get to a checkpoint, and you can screw up in the middle of
the
it. But
thing-
it's not too
The
bad.
thing I have to say to those people is, well, you need to just get better. You do like
Get good.
Get
that-
good.
that is,
Wow,
but that's the
wow.
whole point of this
No,
game.
but it's
is
true though. It
you're
is true.
actually
Yeah,
learning because
yeah.
if you don't actually go through those trials, when the game starts getting harder, you're going to struggle if the game just starts
Yeah,
handing
absolutely,
checkpoints
yeah.
to you. You need
Yeah.
to actually learn, and they do a lot with the enemies. So they get a lot out of the enemies that they put in each area. So they
Yeah.
start, it's like Mario level design in a lot of ways and stuff, where, they'll start sprinkling them in and then they start just ramping it up with the same enemies and mixing two enemy types together that you'd faced separately before. But they get a lot out of it, and you really need to learn the ins and outs of their patterns and how many, exactly how many projectiles they're going to shoot. Because, there's a stage, I think it's the third level 3, where the whole stage, whenever you're in an open area, there's a giant beam of light that will come down and shoot you if you're staying in the same spot all the time.
Wow.
And suddenly,
Nice.
it starts mixing that in with the enemies that you had to learn the patterns before, and it's real masterful
That's pretty
level
clever.
design. I think
that's
it's
really
that third level or chapter, I think is just absolutely fantastic.
cool.
And
I love the level design as well. And like I said, there's certain enemies that I love where they're placed because they're challenging because of where they're intentionally placed.
Yeah.
Like certain enemies where they can fire something and there's a gap just before that. So if they hit you, you fall into the gap and you die. And I think it's frustrating potentially, but it's just brilliant the way they did it.
And that stage, the person that's shooting that beam at you, let's just say you end up in a pretty cool encounter with them. So
Nice.
I like the way that the game kind of builds up the stuff there. But just quickly mentioning the checkpoints, the reason why I reckon the checkpoints are genius is because you can essentially customize these checkpoints based on. It's almost like custom difficulty in a way. So not every checkpoint, but a lot of checkpoints will give you the ability where you can spend some of the currency that you get from enemies to set it so that it's also going to replenish your energy or your mana or whatever, Nimpo, I guess, from a Ninja Gaiden standpoint, or and replenish the ability, and each area has its own kind of ability to focus on. So I think one of the areas has a ability called Swag Blade, which is not only one of the coolest names and ability ever, it is literally like a swag move when you master this thing, which I definitely did master it. Like, this is going to be
Is that the one that rotates and goes flying in front of
exactly.
you? Yeah, that's a really cool one. I like that one.
This is going to be such a fun game to watch speedrunners at GDQ and stuff, because it is just full of swag moves. And just to make sure I wasn't being too ignorant of what this game, I didn't want to make a lot of assumptions and get a lot of stuff incorrect. I did look up some of the stuff that you will unlock because I didn't want to get it incorrect.
Is there a double jump?
Intergot, do you want me to provide that information? I just don't know.
Yeah, it's of sorts, right?
There is a double jump.
Yes. Oh, I love games with double jumps.
Yeah. So there are abilities that you will get that give you more movement options, and there's one that comes pretty soon after where you guys are up to that changes everything basically. And there's later on, some of those abilities get upgraded to offer more stuff to them. So the abilities you guys are getting now don't stay that way; they get even better. So it's really cool. The developer does a lot with what you think is a small amount of stuff at the start. Like this game is actually quite deep in a lot of its mechanics. And just the last thing I want to say is, I mean, I love the music in this game so much. It is just, it's chip tunes. It's kind of like classic NES music, but it's just so.
It's really good, yeah.
It just makes you just want to just. It just makes you feel cool going through the levels, listening to this awesome music, and the sprite work is. It's hard to these days. There's so many games with great sprite work. I think this is up there. And yeah, just we're talking about Shovel Knight. I'm with Mike. I had the opposite feeling with this. Is that I could never get into Shovel Knight, and I appreciate that. It's like a lot of games. I appreciate it from afar, and maybe if I gave it more time, it'd click with me. This clicked with me right away, and it's not just because we were going to talk about it. It's just this just feels like more my kind of game.
Yeah, same.
And
I'll just say that, like, this is the beauty of gaming, right? And the fact that there's so many games available. Like, and I'll just be clear, like, I don't think this is a bad game. I don't think the medium, as I mentioned at the start of the show, is a bad game. It seems like a pretty good game, and it just didn't click with me. But this is the kind of game that, if this was the only game I could play back in like 97 or 95, like, I'd probably love this game. You know what I mean?
There is one thing. I wish this game, and I think I know the reason why it doesn't. I wish this game had a duck, because there's a lot of enemies where you're like, I just wish I could duck below these projectiles. I think the reason why is because the controls in this game are really simplified, where they kind of build everything into just the jump and attack button with the directions, which is admirable from, design standpoint, but it means that I guess they wanted to map, and I haven't got this ability yet, map holding down and pressing something to one of those abilities in the future, because that otherwise, why would you not have a duck in this kind of game? It's in a lot of the classics, similar games to this. So, like your Striders.
Fair point. Notice that.
I guess.
Did you? I mean, this almost turned into a big review. But speaking of reviews, I don't have access to it right now, and I wouldn't even want to read them. Check out the reviews on Xbox. I don't get how that stuff is not auto-moderated or taken out almost immediately.
What do you mean on which version?
For Cyber Shadow on Xbox.
On the console.
Yeah, on the console. Okay. Yeah, sorry. I couldn't. It wasn't the same ones on.
What
PC.
happened?
Just like I don't even remember them off the top of my head for me to actually quote them, but they're really completely non-related to the game. Kind of I think one of them was quite racist.
Racist?
Yeah, it's like people are almost review bombing it with nothing related to the game. Yeah, there's only like probably 5 or 6 reviews on there, but I think 2 or 3 of them were just, what the heck is this? It's really weird. Yeah.
No, I think the game's fine. I just, like I said, for me, it didn't click with me, but I could totally imagine it clicking with other people.
Like Swinny and I.
Yeah, and the fact that you guys like this,
you don't need to imagine. We can.
Yeah, and I love the 8-bit aesthetic of the game. Like, it looks awesome, sounds awesome. I was really annoyed that it's so buggy on the PC. Like, I couldn't use my DualShock 4 controller.
Wow.
So I had to there's an app that I have that it fakes it being an Xbox controller. So there's a lot of like little things. It's one person studio.
If only you had a control that was natively supported by Windows.
Well, this
if
is
only.
sorry. This is natively supported by Windows. The DualShock 4 is natively supported. This game doesn't support it.
Okay.
There's two formats for PC. There's X input and D input. X input is a proprietary format only for Xbox.
All right. Well, you proved me
only
wrong. You proved me.
You had one of these devices I merely used to scratch my beard with. What are they called? Xbox One
Yeah,
controller?
nah, pass.
Yeah, one of them ones.
All right, well,
The best controller ever made.
No, it's far from. But anyway, let's not get into that now.
Nah. Easily the best I've ever used.
Doesn't even have a gyro in it.
Who cares
Doesn't need one.
Who cares about
I hate
gyros?
gyros. They're annoying in games. Every time I turn them off when I can because they're so inaccurate.
All right, well, we'll play. No, see that. Okay, this is going to go into a really different conversation. But that statement is incorrect. Gyros are more accurate than just a regular twin stick. Not as accurate as mouse.
Let's talk about that another time. Let's talk about it
another time.
All right, let's get into Swinny's
yeah.
final thoughts on Valhalla.
Yes.